right, hello, and welcome to another episode of Letters from Camp. This month,
Um,
we are pleased to be joined by Annie Souza. Hey, Annie, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Fantastic. So as always, we kind of like to always start with people's camp stories. So, you wouldn't mind telling us, how you kind of got involved with camp when you first came, areas you've worked in, kind of your career here at Camp Wanocksett.
Yeah, so I was never a camper at camp, but I was in a venture crew, and a lot of the other people that were in the crew worked at camp. And so they were coming off with these great stories of all the fun things they were doing and how much fun they were having. So in 2013, I CIT'd, and then I worked there for a few years in high school, and into college, and then I took a break thinking I was going to be an engineer, and I ended up being a science teacher. So I got to come back, which I consider myself very lucky. So this summer will be my seventh summer at camp. Though I had quite a few as a scoutmaster in the middle too.
Gotcha.
I have always been adventure team staff. So I did 1 year as trek director, which was kind of adventure team adjacent. And then the rest of the time I was at coping climbing.
Cool. Now, if I'm not mistaken, you were one of the first female CITs at Wanocksett?
Yes, it was me and Melody Dole.
Okay. So what was that kind of experience, like, and what's it been to kind of see like the staff become more gender balanced in terms of staff and campers? Like, how's that kind of been for you to kind of oversee that experience?
Yeah, I definitely think it was a little bit strange at first. I still remember my first staff week there. I didn't know the camp because I had never been a camper, but no one knew who I was either. So I think that first kind of weekend, people were like, "Oh, someone's sister's here hanging out. I don't know what's going on." And then I was still there, and they're like, "Oh, who is this? Like, what's going on?" They also didn't know, I guess, where to put us. It was all just very new, and so I think people were
Mhm.
a little bit nervous and they just were unsure. So at the time, the CIT village was behind Waterfront Cabin, but me and Melody had a tent that was right in front of Danny's cabin, where we were very well supervised. But I think it was just, he was worried about it and he wanted to make sure we were safe and comfortable as well. But everyone thought it was for Paul and Mary Kate, so they were very surprised when they found out that it was me and Melody in there.
Yeah,
But it was, yeah, it was fun. It was cool. There was definitely a lot of people who were had our back and who were making sure we had a good time. Um, it was definitely a little stressful too, though, of like having this reminder of like, ooh, if I mess up, like that doesn't only reflect on me, that reflects on, whoever else is going to come in after me. There wasn't even any other female junior staff, so that was a lot of pressure. Um, at this point, though, and it's weird, but it's really cool. They don't even know. They have no, like the junior staff now, the female junior staff have no idea that it's weird for them to be there or that there was ever a time where that wasn't the case. And I mean, we're talking 12 years ago was my CIT year. That's a long time in terms of a scout, but not a long time in terms of the world. Um, so it's really, really cool to see just they're so comfortable and they're like, yep, this is who I am and this is where I belong. And they've never second guessed that. And that's really, really awesome to see.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I do remember the tent being in the kind of edge of the parking lot there in front of Danny's cabin. So,
Right next to the nurse, if
yeah,
we needed anything.
yeah. Um, so you mentioned, adventure team and that we were involved in venturing. Um, so you've been pretty kind of involved in that aspect of camp as well. What are your kind of some of your favorite parts of the venturing program at camp?
I think a big piece of it is the amount of flexibility that we give them. I remember there was times where we had one of the crews up and they were looking at going to Northern Tier. And so we spent a lot of time with them out on the water and working on paddling skills. There have other times we've had groups come up and be really interested in shooting, and we get to do a little bit more of the advanced shooting stuff. Cope is always a really good option, and it's fun when you get a whole crew doing cope, because they kind of get the chance to bond a little bit more, and that bonding gets to continue into their unit versus just being okay, we've got this bond, but now we all go back to our separate units and you keep those skills. So I think the flexibility is a really big advantage of that program.
Yeah, I mean, we always say it, in Scoutmaster meetings and things like that, that one of the advantages of our Cope course is it's kind of out of the way, so no one's going to wander in and get hurt. But it's also one of
Yeah.
the biggest disadvantages because people don't see it right there.
Yeah.
Um, but
Yeah.
What have been kind of some of the challenges and successes of venturing at Wanocksett, do you think?
I think some of the challenges are just fitting it into the rest of the program. We have so many really cool things going on already, that it becomes difficult to kind of make sure that we have the right staffing to get the ventures kind of those additional pieces. We can usually we work it out, we figure out how to move people around, but that's always kind of one of the challenges. I think in recent years, I've also seen a lot of we have crews where some of them are 18, 19, 20, and they want to do venturing stuff, but we have a few others who are still 16, 17, or 15 even, who need to work on merit badges still and are dual enrolled. So making sure we're meeting the needs of both of those age groups in the program
Hmm.
sometimes becomes a challenge too.
Yeah, and also, I think a lot of units maybe don't know that there's off-season stuff as well. That, we
Yeah,
do kind of co-programs in the fall and the spring, and
yeah,
um, yeah, which can be a good opportunity, definitely.
yes, for
Um,
sure, for sure. Got a few more
but
dates out this spring, so
there you go. Contact, and how do they kind of schedule that? Is that through council?
it's through council, yep, and or email cope at HNEBSA, and we'll get you set up as well.
It also can be good because then you're not as busy as like a week at camp too, and you can kind of just focus on that kind of team building
Yeah,
aspect and some of those things
yeah,
too.
for sure.
Um, all right, so let's move into our lightning round.
All right.
So number one, what is your favorite camp song?
Way Up in the Sky about the birds in the morning. Absolute favorite. I also used to sing it to my little brother to wake him up, and he hated that. So
Nice. How about your favorite camp skit?
the Bulbous Bouffant one from I think that was my CIT year. I think 2013 is probably my favorite one I've ever seen. I loved that.
Yeah, that's going back. That's a good one. Um, and then how about your favorite camp meal?
Honestly, my favorite part about food at camp is that I don't have to pick. I love just being able to walk in and like, okay, there's the meal, I'm eating it. And so I can't even think of anything. That is my absolute favorite part. It's just not having to pick.
How about your favorite place in camp?
The top of the climbing tower, where you can see the view of Monadnock, for sure.
That one's really good in the fall too, when they're
Yes,
kind of going
yes,
through the
that's
leaves. Yeah.
another off-season specialty.
Mhm.
Fall or early spring, you get that. It's a beautiful view. Yeah.
Um, and then any particular person, from maybe your CIT year when you were a younger staffer that you want to shout out that maybe served as like a mentor to you or kind of that you really looked up to?
Um, really remember looking up to everyone. Scouting wise though, not necessarily a staffer at the time, but Jim Ganley was always he was the one that got me into the CIT program and kind of vouched for me that way. And then just with the coping climbing stuff really guided along and he'd have to be the person I go with as far as a mentor.
Great. And anyone who's kind of involved in education, I have to ask this question too. How does kind of camp kind of lend itself to your career as a teacher and kind of vice versa?
Um, I honestly don't know. I don't know that I would have ended up being a teacher if I hadn't worked at camp. Like I said, I went to college and I thought I was going to be an engineer. I didn't think that was the path that I was going to take. And then life kind of led itself around, and I was kind of looking towards the end of college and going, "Oh, what do I actually want to do with this degree? I don't think I want to be an engineer." And that led me to teaching. But my first year of teaching, I ran my classroom, so it was a merit badge class, and I was like, "Let me hope for the best here." Um, and so it definitely, I don't think I would have, I don't know if I would have ended up as a teacher, and I don't know if I would have been successful without that. And obviously, I wouldn't be back at camp had I not landed back in education. So I'm really
Right.
grateful that that worked out.
Yeah, just report cards instead of blue cards. It's one of the biggest
Yeah.
differences.
Blue cards are easier. I don't
It's
miss
true.
that. I
That's true. Any kind of final, any comments you wanted to add or anything you wanted to say before we kind of wrap up?
think that's it.
All right, great. Well, thank you, Annie, for being my guest this month. Make sure all of the viewers subscribe and like and everything you're supposed to do with all these, and tune in next month on Letters from Camp.
All
Thank you,
right.
Annie.
Thank you.